What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Bridging the Geekdoms. I'm your host, Robert Slavinsky, and should the Snyderverse movement continue? That's kind of the question on everybody's lips right now, with what has transpired over the last week, and with the news that dropped just yesterday that Zack Snyder has signed a 2-year first-look deal with Netflix. Now, let's kind of dive into what this could mean when it comes to Zack Snyder. Now, a first-look deal is pretty simple. It's exactly what it sounds like. Any projects that Zack Snyder decides to develop, Netflix gets a first chance at making that if they want to. If they decide against it, he can take that idea and project to another studio to be made. But Netflix has a right to that, to make that project before he goes and tries to sell it elsewhere. So that's essentially what it is. But with that, Army of the Dead 2 is currently in development after the reveal that Army of the Dead was one of the biggest hits for Netflix with, 75 million views in the first few weeks. That was huge for them. So obviously, of course, they're going to greenlight a sequel. But he also has his other films and other projects that he's working on. Now, a film and a project like that, depending on how in-depth he is going to be part of that project, can differ when it comes to how long it takes to get the project made. So you have Rebel Moon and you have Army of the Dead 2, both of which are most likely going to take, depending if stories are completed and scripts are already done, if that's the case, each one of those will probably be about, let's say, roughly 18 to 24 months to be completed at this point. Give or take a little more, a little less, depending on how much work is already done. And that is if he is staying on as director, producer, etc., etc., etc. Now, that's 2 projects there, both of which appear to be going to Netflix. And if that's the case, now, there can be overlap. So, let's say Rebel Moon is his next big project. That right there, that piece there, could start and be finished filming and be in post-production as he's beginning production on Army of the Dead 2, or vice versa, whichever one he's going to do next. So, when you look at that, you're looking at a possible 18 to 24 months plus, I'm not even going to say less than that, most likely plus, upwards of 36 months of him being deep into those 2 projects. Not to mention that he will most likely be doing similar thing that like what J.J. Abrams is doing over at WB, where he's helping produce and push other ideas and projects that he has, where he has an idea and he doesn't necessarily need to or want to write or direct, but he could hire writers, directors, and he can sit back as a producer. That is all possible as well. But what does this mean for the Snyderverse as a whole? The Snyderverse over at DC and Warner Brothers. We've all fought hard for the last X amount of years, whether it's been since 2017 when you joined, or if you joined in 2020, or even just this past month. We've all fought hard. We've done our best to support Zack. A lot of us have done our best to support Zack. Again, the toxicity that came about last week is unwarranted in any way, shape, or form. And as I said, everybody should be ashamed of themselves. But the timing of this news for Zack is just unfortunate, because the fandom at this current point in time is absolutely at its lowest point that it's ever been. To then get this information, this news that Snyder will be working on 2 upcoming projects, plus more on a first look deal at Netflix, what that says to me is that he has stepped away from his fight with Warner Brothers to try and continue his Snyderverse of DC films or stories. Now, that isn't to say that it can't happen. You know, a lot of people, I've been posting stuff on the twits. A lot of people have been coming at me saying, "Oh no, it can still happen. It can still happen. It was never going to happen until after Discovery merger, blah blah blah." This. So, let me get this out of the way. The Discovery merger is a big deal. But let's not think that that is the magical button that will be pressed, or that there is a magical button that can be pressed when Zaslav takes over and he just goes, engage the Snyderverse. Because that's not how it's going to work. Now, technically, Zaslav should not be seeing any numbers in regards to Warner Brothers projects. He should not be seeing any kind of revenue stream, anything like that. That could hurt and stop and delay the merger. That's a big thing. I've been through mergers with companies before, and the big thing is the companies cannot know everything about the ins and outs and the intricacies of the other company, because they believe that could tarnish the deal, because then they can start planning and blah blah blah, this stuff. They look, the rules that the government makes for this stuff is ridiculous. But Zaslav doesn't and shouldn't exactly know. I'm not saying he doesn't, but he shouldn't know all the ins and outs of what has transpired over the Zack Snyder's Justice League, Snyder Cut, all that jazz. People need to realize is the Discovery deal is going to finalize next year. They're shooting for spring of 2022. My thoughts with seeing how all these deals have gone in the past with other companies, I'm thinking it's probably going to be spring to summer, no later than the end of summer next year. That's if everything runs smoothly. It could absolutely happen by the spring. But they get in there. So let's just say, best case scenario, Discovery gets in there in March. In March, Zaslav takes a look, blah, blah, blah. Okay, he decides he wants to greenlight the Snyderverse. Then there's the whole deal of convincing Zack to come back. What is going to push or entice Zack to come back? Then it's getting all the talent. We know Ben Affleck has had a hell of a time over at Warner Brothers as well. What's going to entice him to come back? Then you have Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman. You have Aquaman, played by Jason Momoa. Ezra Miller, The Flash. And then the big one, Ray Fisher, Cyborg. What is going to pull these actors back to this project, and how? You then also have their current deals that some of them are on for X amount of pictures under Warner Brothers. So then new deals have to be made. You then have to fit it into their schedules, because by that time they're going to have things lined up for the next year or two. So the more, and I've been saying this for so long, and don't get me wrong, I want to see the Snyderverse continued. There's nothing that I want more than to see those films and stories and projects get continued. But the longer that it took to get a green light, the less likely it would be that we would get this in live action. And that's just fact. And I know some of my friends in other shows, some of my friends in other, outlets and things like that, they've sat there and said, look, it's going to happen. You just have to be patient. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight. This Discovery deal was not known, 9 months ago. It wasn't known a year ago. And we were all saying the same thing. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And it never happened, never happened, never happened, never happened. And then, this Discovery deal is going to happen. That's definitely going to make this a reality. And it's just like, no, guys, you have to understand the intricacies in the business aspect. This isn't something that's just going to happen. It's not how it's going to work. So, is there a possibility? Absolutely. I will continue my fight for restoring the Snyderverse. But I think we need to temper our expectations at this point, because the likelihood of it continuing in live action has always been a long shot, in my opinion. Always been a long shot. Even Zack has alluded to the idea and possibility of continuing it in another format, whether it's animated or motion comic or even a graphic novel. And personally, whatever Zack is okay with doing, I'm okay with them doing. Because remember, the movement is about artistic integrity. It's about righting the wrongs of the past. And to a certain point, you can only right the wrongs so much because of just time. And if Zack were to come and say, look, I'm too busy, I can't do this live action, but let's do a graphic novel with Jim Lee. Or if he comes back and says, look, I'd love to do it in live action, I don't have the time, but hey, let's get Jay Oliva to do 2 animated movies. I trust that he can do this properly. If he were to do that, I would be all on board for it. These people that are sitting here saying live action or nothing are not understanding the whole picture, and in all honesty are going to be a downfall of this movement continuing and becoming stronger, because that's not what the movement's about. The movement is not about getting exactly what we want. It's about the artistic integrity and supporting Zack Snyder and allowing him to finish his vision how he sees fit. So is the Snyderverse movement done? No. Should it continue? Absolutely it should continue. But our expectations need to be tempered. Our understanding of the movement needs to come together. We need to once again understand what we are fighting for. It is not for clout. It is not for us to sit here and say, oh, look, I helped raise $3,000. Oh, look, I helped put together a convention. Oh, look, I did XYZ. It's not about, I want this, and if you don't give it to me, F you. That's not what it's about. It is about supporting Zack Snyder, supporting artistic integrity, whether it's Zack, David Ayer, Ben Affleck, Ray Fisher, whomever you want to support for their artistic integrity being completed. That's what the movement is for. It's not about showing toxicity towards Warner Brothers. It's not constantly hounding Zaslav and Discovery saying you need to do this. It's about standing united as a fan base. It's about showing positivity and thankfulness for getting what we have gotten so far. I know that's a hard concept to understand, but we can't sit there and act like complete assholes because a different regime of people, what is it now, 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, decided to destroy what Zack Snyder was creating and give us the 2017 version of Justice League, or Justice League, whatever you fuck call it. Because the new regime, whether they wanted to or not, made it right. Yes, there is all that other shit going on behind the scenes with racism and inclusion and diversity, but we can't lose sight of what the Restore the Snyderverse, or at least the Snyder Cut movements are about. You can have that going on and still support someone like Ray Fisher and the Accountability Greater Than Entertainment movement. They're not one and the same, but you can't support both. Let me know your thoughts, what you are thinking, what you're worried about, whether you're excited about what's going on. I want to congratulate Zack Snyder on this deal. It's huge. I love seeing that Netflix is putting so much faith in you and hoping that they just continue to give you everything you need so you can fulfill your artistic integrity or your artistic views and excitement in the different projects that you want to create. And I want to thank Zack Snyder for being such a strong and powerful voice for the movement of releasing the Snyder Cut and restoring the Snyderverse over the last few years. Thank you for that. Thank you for finishing your project of the Snyder Cut and giving it to us. So with all that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to all of you later. What's going on, guys? Did you enjoy this video? If you did, make sure you smash that like button. And for more, hit subscribe with that little notification bell. That way, you'll be notified every time a new episode drops. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all later.